have a terrible confession to make, and it's not about the time on the wall. On the day the blizzard struck, March 19th, I believe it was, with the high winds and the poles coming down and the wet, heavy snow, I was driving through West Virginia, and my car temperature said it was 90 degrees outside. I had the air conditioning on, and I was complaining to myself about how hot it was. All while I knew what was happening here. I got 30 minutes from my destination of Newport News, Virginia, and I got the call from OPPD that I wouldn't have power until Monday. So I was here in solidarity. It was still 90 degrees. And I did feel a little bit guilty, but I was also grateful that I had the opportunity to take an earlier departure time so I could get ahead of the storm. And I'm not telling any of this to brag, but I want you to know that as I was driving and I saw the daffodils in bloom and the redbud trees and every tree and the cherry blossoms in Arlington, if it makes you feel any better, with every minute I spent in all that beauty, I got more and more congested from all the pollen. If that gains me anything at all. I was very aware my Midwestern health was not ready for that. So I thought it was going to be about that kind of beauty today, about the affectionate awe that we have for the things we look at and that we see that are beautiful and that make us go, oh, it's springtime, we're so glad, but it's not. So, sorry, I'm gonna invite us to learn a new word today, and I'm not a German, and I only took German for a year, so I'm not very good. Did I do pretty well with the Achtung? Like, you could say it better. Could you yell it out? Achtung, thank you. That's better. Yours is still better. Sorry, I just spit on the microphone. Okay. So when I think about the word attention, that's a word that comes to mind. I was not familiar with this other word. So Gregory Boyle, in his book, Cherished Belonging, The Healing Power of Love in Divided Times, writes that St. Ignatius of Loyola on February 27th, 1544, wrote a word in his spiritual journal. That word is also on the front of your bulletin. I'm going to say it over and over, and I may ask you to say it with me before the day is over. And I've tried to learn to say it correctly. I've listened to the pronunciation several times. And if you are more fluent than I, please feel free to correct me. But what I understand is acatamiento. Acatamiento. Is that close? Oh, thank you, Lord. Okay. So Ignatius wrote this word in his journal, and in the remaining 12 years of his life, he used the word often, and at some point before his death, he went back and he circled the word wherever it appeared. It comes from the word akatar, which means to look at something with attention. And at first, it brought to my mind, as I said, that word in German, attention. Now, I need your attention. But acatamiento gets translated more accurately as affectionate awe. And again, this is where I thought it would come in with thinking affectionate as sentimental. Oh, it's springtime, look at the daffodils, but it's so much more. Acatamiento is the concept that we shape our lives around relationship with others, but particularly with awe and affection to those whose belonging has been cut off, the Polly Murrays of the world. The severed, those whose relationships have been severed with families, with friends, with society, with the people we walk across the street to avoid. Acatamiento tells us that's who we should be viewing with affectionate awe. In today's culture, I might even suggest it's the people that we disagree with on certain issues. So acatamiento is shaping our lives around relationship with those whose belonging has been cut off. We see with affectionate awe those who belong, who don't believe they belong. Some of them are in this room. Some of them are children. Some of them are older adults. Some of them are on the median outside. They're all around us. So I wanted to take those two readings from this morning that were chosen very purposely. Because there is something to being in love with all the saints, which was the piece that caught me off guard this morning, but also seeing with the eyes of our hearts enlightened, as well as the story of the healing of a blind man. So I'm going to draw on a couple of stories and those readings and invite us to consider acatamiento. Now, maybe you've heard this story before about the rabbi who asked a group of students, how do we know when the night has ended and the day has begun? And there's various incarnations of this story, but for this morning I chose this one, that when one student said, well, when I look out at the fields and I can distinguish between my field and the field of my neighbor, that's when the night has ended and day has begun. And a second student offered another. When I look from the fields and I see a house and I can see that it's my house and not the house of my neighbor, that's when the night has ended and the day has begun. A third offered, when I can distinguish the animals in my yard and I can tell a cow from a horse, that's when the night has ended and the day has begun. And with each answer, the rabbi did a very slow shake of the head until finally the student spoke up and said, then tell us, how do we know when the night has ended and day has begun? And with a gentle voice, the rabbi responded, when you look into the face of the person who is beside you, and you can see that that person is your brother or your sister, when you can recognize that person as a friend, then finally the night has ended and the day has begun. I remember the first time I heard that story, not the exact time or date. It's a heart memory that I have. And I read an interpretation of the story recently that the rabbi was saddened because every answer offered by one of the students indicated that dawn showed division. And I'd never thought about it that way before. That each of their answers brought a recognition of what's mine and what's yours and where it divides. I can see what's yours. I can see what's mine. I can see the animals in my yard. And this interpretation related that the rabbi was basically inviting them to consider the Hebrew Bible intention of the year of Jubilee, when debts are forgiven, when persons are freed, when justice brings everything back to balance. And the rabbi's lesson tells us what the world might be like if we saw with the eyes of our hearts enlightened. If we look and see brother, sister, sibling, friend, instead of stranger, other, them. If we saw every person, everyone who has been cut off, who feels they don't belong, that is when night ends and day has begun. I've always loved that story, but thinking about it with the eyes of our hearts enlightened brings new meaning to it. When I got home on Thursday and I went through all of the mail that I'd collected, and yes, I do still get mail. Some of it I actually read. My new copy of the Sojourners magazine had arrived, and the front cover told me there was an interview with Barbara Brown Taylor. I was so excited. If you don't know Barbara, I call her Barbara. I don't know her, but I call her Barbara. You should get to know her. She also is an Episcopal priest. She's been a professor, a prolific writer. She's an all-around amazing woman. And she talked about in this interview how her life, now that she is mostly retired, has changed. She talked about how she and her neighbors, she now lives on a small farm in North Georgia, that based on the signs that she saw in yards, that she assumed that they did not agree politically. And they didn't talk about it a lot. But she also related a story that after a recent snowstorm, her 2-mile-long driveway was blocked by downed branches and trees. And as she and her spouse, who was in his 80s, were getting ready to go out and take care of this task, and they were talking about how they were going to do it with just the two of them, when they got outside, they discovered their neighbors, who had different signs in their yard than they did, had already cleared the driveway. And she said, we don't know everything about somebody from the political sign in their yard or the sticker on their car. We won't save what we don't love. Preach, sister. We won't save what we don't love. So love has to be our starting point. She went on and she said, duty is hugely important, but so is not missing the beauty that is put before us, because that's an insult to the beauty maker. It's an insult to God. It's an insult to God if we say we don't love that, so we're not going to worry about it. I disagree with you politically. I disagree with you on social issues. I disagree with that, so you must be lesser than. No. Acatamiento says, no, we must see each other. All of us must see all of us. It's amazing when we stop to think about what happens when we look upon one another with affectionate awe, the healing that can take place. We may not still agree, but we can see each other and see beauty in one another. Now, in my mind, I combine Barbara's words with Gregory's words, because you know Gregory Boyle and I'll call him by first name. I combine their words in my mind to suggest that acatamiento compels us to know, capital K, capital N, capital O, capital W, to know, not get in theory, not sit in a classroom and go, oh yes, that's very important and insightful, but to know that each and every person is part of the beauty. They belong to the beauty. They are the beauty. And without some of our folks, we don't have the full beautiful picture that we need to see. Boyle talks about we need to lay aside ourselves, our fears, our preconceived notions, and look with affectionate awe on the beauty that is each person, each child of God. He writes that we're called to belong to the beloved, and our walking with each other is our constant state of reminder that we belong to the beloved. Our walk with each person is as sacred as our walk with God. Our walk with each other is as sacred as our walk with God. We won't save what we don't love. And love is our starting point. So I want to look at Mark for just a second. Not Mark Ellis, the Gospel of Mark. They came to Bethsaida. And people brought a blind man to Jesus. He took him out, put saliva on his eyes, laid his hands on him and said, can you see anything? And the man looked up and said, I see people, but they look like trees walking. And then we're told that Jesus laid his hands on his eyes again, looked intently, and his sight was restored, and he saw everything clearly. Now think about that story for a minute. The initial answer from the man was, yeah, I can see. We kind of tend to skip over that. The man offered that what had happened was probably good enough. It was better than he was saying, yeah, Jesus, I see people. Look a little bit like trees, but I can see them. But good enough wasn't good enough. The story says Jesus laid his hands on the man's eyes again, and he saw everything clearly. And seeing clearly is pivotal for acatamiento, for affectionate awe, for seeing everyone as someone who belongs. Acatamiento means we're living with the eyes of our hearts enlightened. And when Jesus asks if you can see, he means, are you willing to see clearly? It means that we live in affectionate awe of what people are carrying, their burdens, their worries, whatever it is they carry, whether it's mistakes of the past or the last 2 seconds. It means seeing that whether we know what their burden is, that we see them. We appreciate them. We look upon them with affectionate awe. It means that the next time we drive down Dodge Street and we see a person on the median, we see them and think, you know what? They have an actual need. It means that the next time we're in downtown Omaha and we think, man, that person needs a shower, they probably do need a shower. See them. See the person. See the person who has faithfully responded to continue on TPS is living afraid right now. See that our kids who got up and sang this morning, they carry burdens we don't know. And we should listen to them and see them all. Our youth make deep and difficult decisions every day that most of us don't know about because we don't walk in their shoes in classrooms and hallways and schools. And all of this is not in that nod my head and think, oh, someone should do something about that, but in a way that says, acatamiento, I see you, I love you, I will step aside and forget myself in order to make room for you at the table, in the room, on the earth. I've done it several times this morning. I'm really good at going, oh, I had the worst day yesterday. I had to do laundry. Oh my gosh, Morita Truman. Sometimes I make myself so mad. I can hear my mother saying that right now, that I look at my life and I think I have it difficult, and I do not look with affectionate awe on the people who feel completely alone in the world, who think they don't belong. And they do. And acatamiento is what keeps us from looking. It's what keeps us from despising one another over signs in yards. It's what keeps us paying attention to homelessness. It keeps us paying attention to those who live with mental illness, to worrying about socioeconomic status. It makes us pay attention to those who suffer with addiction, for those who are in prison or just out, who feel completely cut off from society, whether they feel cut off by family, by legislatures, by any moment in their lives. If they feel like they don't belong, we are supposed to swoop in and say, acatamiento, affectionate awe, I see you, and I will put my own self aside to make room for you. It's what keeps us from seeing someone and thinking to ourselves, oh, they're just an addict. They're just homeless. They just that. Whatever that blank gets filled in with, we need to stop filling in that blank and saying, just a, and we need to start saying, there is a child of God. And my call is to see that person and to do what I can to bring them back into belonging. It's the moment that we put ourselves in the gospel story and decide. The decision we have to make is if we're going to be content with having good enough vision, or are we going to have the eyes of our hearts enlightened to live with acatamiento, to live with affectionate awe for all God's children? Would you pray with me? God, it's one thing to say it in this space. It's another to live this in the world. Make us brave. Give us courage. Make us see the opportunities to share acatamiento in the world. There are so many who are hurting right now. There are so many who feel like they're being erased. There are so many who feel like their stories don't matter. And oh God, they do. They all matter. And we need to know them all. So help us, oh God, to live with the eyes of our hearts enlightened. Fully 20/20 vision. Not just good enough, but seeing clearly where you call us to be. Amen.